It's 7 o'clock here in Moscow, and you're watching RT International live from our studio with me, Nadira Tudor. Welcome to the programme. France is recalling its ambassador to Rome for consultations amid a worsening spat spurred by the actions of Italy's deputy prime ministers. Charlotte Dubensky reports.
Well, this marks a new low in the already rocky relations between France and Italy, two countries that should be allies. They're members of the European Union, and some have described this latest move by France as being unprecedented. I believe it's the first time that France has recalled its ambassador from Rome since the Second World War, when the two countries were actually at war with each other. Well, this move comes after one of Italy's deputy prime ministers, Luigi Di Maio, was seen photographed with yellow vest protesters here in France, and describing that movement on Twitter as saying that the winds of change were coming across the Alps. Well, the French Foreign Ministry has hit out at that, describing the verbal attacks from Italy and saying that those provocations are just too much. This is the statement that they've released.
The most recent interferences constitute an additional and unacceptable provocation. They violate the respect that is owed to democratic choices made by a nation, which is a friend and an ally. They violate the respect that democratically and freely elected governments owe each other.
And his co-deputy prime minister within the Italian government has also been one to hit out at France and particular President Macron, recently offering his support to also the Yellow Vest movement.
I side with the millions of Frenchmen who are complaining about a president who is harming the French people. I condemn any acts of hooliganism and violence without exception.
The Minister for European Affairs here in France retorted with this.
France refrains from giving lessons to Italy. Salvini and Di Maio should learn to sweep their own doorstep.
Well, the two countries have been at each other's throats for some time, more recently finding themselves on opposing sides of an international crisis that's happening in Venezuela, with France amongst a number of EU countries deciding that they will throw their full weight behind the National Assembly leader who's declared himself interim president. That's Guido. Meanwhile, Italy decided it would reject that and has remained supporting the democratically elected President Maduro. For the moment, it seems that these relations between France and Italy, two countries who are neighbours, two countries who are part of the European Union, and two countries who should be strong allies, is getting worse and worse.
French President Macron was among a number of European leaders to recognise the Venezuelan opposition leader as the interim president. However, not everyone in Paris is on board with the decision. Socialist figurehead Jean-Luc Mélenchon compared the backing of Juan Guaido to allowing the Yellow Vest leader into the presidential hot seat in France.
It's not a good thing to recognize an adventurer who proclaims himself to be the president of a republic, as this gentleman has. If we do that, Yellow Vest leader Mr. Drouet will be president of this republic.
Live now to discuss this issue with Paolo Raffoni, an Italian political scientist and journalist. Thanks for coming onto the programme, Paolo. Are we looking at just the surface of the issues between Italy and France right now, or in your opinion, do they run deeper?
Well, there are many root causes to this disgraceful animosity between the two capitals. These root causes can be found at least since 2011 Libyan crisis, and they have been somehow quiet for some time, till when in Italy the government has changed. And with the current government, there has been a very clear distrust between the government of Italy and the one of France. The case of the high-speed train that has been halted, the problems with the migrants on the border. We have also to acknowledge the fact that France holds a huge chunk of Italian public debt, something like 4 times bigger chunk than any other European nation. So there are a number of issues that make this relationship very complicated, and each side is taking a stand for a confrontation, a show-off most of the time that maybe could have been played at a lower level than it is today. It is anyway very disgraceful that two Western countries, two European members, are acting reciprocally in this aggressive way.
Yeah, I mean, what do you make, Paolo, of the timing of all this? Could Italy be looking to advance its policies after some resistance from the EU over its budget, for example?
Well, I think that this doesn't help anybody, doesn't help the Italian government and doesn't help the French government. So this is not the way to conduct things with reciprocal hits and accusations. It's time to find a more cooperative setup, and this last move gives too much of an importance, I would say, to a political show-off made by one of the representatives of the Italian government.
If we take a wider perspective on all of this, France has recently, as you know, recognized the Venezuelan opposition leader as the rightful interim president in the Latin American country. But Paris says that the deputy Italian PM's actions are interfering in French affairs. In your opinion, is there any difference between these actions?
Well, this was very blatant and visible because this political Italian figure went to Paris and met with the yellow vest people, had pictures, made declarations, and so on. But the interference is reciprocal. I mean, it can be done in a more subtle way, but the interference happens also from France towards Italy. I mean, so this is a normal way things happen in between countries. But the problem here is a problem of prestige, is a problem of image, is a problem of showing that a state cannot accept what has been done, and the other one instead claims that politically is correct. So it's something that should be called for a halt and to reduce the tension. This is not the way ahead.
Yeah, you're talking about reducing tension. Again, if we look at what some of French politicians are doing, they're against supporting the Venezuelan opposition leader. How much of a divide do you think there is within France and the rest of the EU on this matter?
It's not only France. I mean, there are a number of European states, including Spain and UK and partially Germany, that have expressed their decision to support the Mr. Guaido in Venezuela. But again, even there, the process of change in Venezuela is something that has to be taken seriously. This is not by supporting one side against the other that the change is facilitated. This is a way to ignite a possible civil war in Venezuela, which would benefit nobody. So here too, I mean, the approach should be a much more cautious type of approach. Anytime that something is done by the use or the threat of force or with ultimatums doesn't help a positive outcome.
OK, Paolo Raffoni, we'll leave it there. An Italian political scientist and journalist. Thanks very much for coming onto the programme, Paolo.
You're welcome.
Venezuelans are queuing up in Caracas to sign a petition in support of their embattled president, Nicolas Maduro. They're calling on the US to stop interfering in their country's affairs. The open letter will reportedly